First, though, are Reform better than Labour or the Tories? 020 7862 2222 is the number. Nigel Farage's party have come out on top of a major national poll for the first time. I'll take a closer look now for you at the results. So this is YouGov and Sky News voting intention right here. Let's start at the bottom. The Greens and the Lib Dems bumping along, although the Lib Dems have got a handy number of, 80-odd MPs they've got. They're doing amazingly well in the House of Commons. The Conservatives are in third, according to this poll. It's the first really big poll that's done this. 21% for Badenoch. Starmer gets 24, but with 25%, Nigel Farage's Reform Party up 2. So that's a big moment. We've probably got to remember where we were when we saw this, because it does feel like a change in the two-party system, doesn't it? And I suppose in 2010 we had a similar change when the Lib Dems went into coalition with the Conservatives and so on. That was a big change. But this is bigger, isn't it? What's going on, Annunziata? I used to be a Brexit Party MEP.
I was a Brexit Party MEP, and they have morphed into the Reform Party, and I actually went back to the Conservatives.
Why did you do that, though? Why leave them?
Because I think if you want to affect change, the people who can do it, the people who understand how to do it are the Conservatives. I think the Conservatives have completely failed this country, and I'm not going to mince words on that. That I think if you look back to Theresa May trying to betray Brexit, if you look back to Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak completely failing to tackle immigration, they didn't do what they promised on the tin. And that is where they've left a huge gaping void that Reform has filled. Yeah. And someone had to. And I'm glad someone is, because the British people deserve to have democracy in this country.
Well, let us talk to the Reform Deputy Leader, Richard Tice, who joins us just for a few minutes now. And I guess I start by saying congratulations, do I?
Well, thank you, Jeremy. It's real progress since I last saw you, I think, back in August, just after being elected as an MP. And yes, we continue to make great strides. We've got the momentum, the energy. And as you were just saying, I think, Annunziata, it's very good, actually, for democracy to have more choice, more debate, different views. And look, I think that the country is in a really difficult place. Nothing works. Everyone's paying more taxes. There's no growth. All the indicators are that we're possibly heading towards recession. And people want change. People want a different approach. And that's what we represent.
Of course, the problem is anyone looking at your poll numbers will think it doesn't translate into seats. And you will appreciate that because you got half a dozen, despite having more votes than the Liberal Democrats. So the only way this happens for you is that you have to go and do a deal with Kemi Badenoch. You know that.
No, completely wrong, Jeremy, because you're not looking at the numbers. That may or may not have been the case when you're at 10 to 12%. But once you get into the mid-20s and the high 20s and the 30s, which is the direction of travel we're heading towards, then actually, because of the way first past the post, all of a sudden, the numbers leverage hugely in one's favour. And that's the big, big difference. So let's wait and see what happens over the next few months. There's obviously a very long way to go. But we've just got to keep working hard and presenting a different alternative to
Jemma, what do you
what's
think?
Causing us such damage at the moment.
Jemma, you're on the left. Are you happy with the idea of Reform and the Conservatives switching places?
No. I mean, I understand why you're filling a void. I can understand why specifically a lot of young men are attracted to your party. And I think, Labour at your peril, you don't look at this very, very hard. And it's because they've been completely neglected for 14 years by the Tories. And when people are disaffected, when they see that their living standards are rubbish, they don't have any hope of decent jobs and being able to get in the housing ladder, they look for extremes. The idea, though, that you and your chums, multi-millionaires, all went to various public schools are the men of the people. It's just absolutely for the birds. The fact that Farage cozies up to Andrew Tate, I mean, I'm sure you can imagine what I think of him. But you're clever. You know what to do. You go on TikTok. You speak to the masses. You employ the tactics that Trump has, which is you'll be going on all the big podcasts, and Labour are just going to manage decline at the moment. And unless they start providing hope very, very quickly and put money in people's pockets, they will fail.
But there's nothing wrong from your point of view in Reform being Britain's #1 party. That's how democracy works, right?
Well, of course, I can't change it, but I don't have to like it.
No.
I find it really worrying.
Would you
but I understand it. No.
OK, that's quite a long silence there. Richard, just coming back to this thing of the three parties all on about 20, 25% or whatever. You know, I mean, you're wrong about this. If you've got a constituency, you've got 20 right-wing voters and you've got 15 left-wing voters. The 15 left-wing voters go for Labour, and the 14 go for Reform, 6 go for the Tories, and Labour get the seat. And Labour are laughing today.
Jeremy, you need to get out more into the real world. What actually happens is that voters will say, who do I want to prevent? Who do I want to get out? And that's what happened at the last election last July. People voted tactically to get rid of the Conservatives. Next time round, trust me, people are going to vote very tactically to get rid of a failing Labour Party that's making people poorer with the lunacy of net stupid zero and the lunacy of mass immigration that's putting extra burdens on our health system, extra burdens on our housing market and our infrastructure.
Jemma.
And this has got to stop because
Richard,
you can't keep making people poorer and expect people to vote for the two main parties ever again.
So interesting, because I know Reform very anti-immigration, yeah?
Yeah, we want smart immigration, not mass immigration.
That's really interesting because Farage on the public record just got paid £40,075 by nomad capitalists and was teaching very, very super rich people how to transcend borders, how to get multi-passports, how to invest their tax offshore. It's all on public record.
Are against having very rich people move
you can
here
migrate,
to pay more tax.
You can migrate if you want to avoid tax, if you're super, super rich.
Let Richard answer.
This ridiculous... This sort of petty envy. What we need
It's not
is
envy.
more smart, successful
I don't
people
want to be
coming to the country, investing in the UK, employing people, growing businesses here in the UK. People are leaving the country because they're sick of high taxes, they're sick of the high regulations, they're sick of the high crime levels, and we've got to turn that round. And at the moment, Labour are not doing that.
Let's take a call. While we've got you, Richard, hang on, Jemma. Let's take a call. Ian is in West Yorkshire. Hi.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put you straight through to Richard Tice. You might want to congratulate him, Ian. I don't know.
Congratulate him for what?
Because Reformer, do you not see the earlier item? Reformer number 1 now.
Yeah, Reformer number 1, yes, because they can promise anything they want because they're not in government. Here's the problem. Now, Reform UK, or as I call them, Deform UK, are actually a one-man band. And when you have someone like Nigel Farage, who's on the radio, who's on television, he is a well-known figure, and for many people, he's a popular figure. But because we have a paucity of political knowledge in this country, now people like Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson stand out. They stand out, and because people see them as because they are well-known figures, unfortunately, people think
what is the problem? OK, they've got a famous leader. What's the problem with that, Ian? You got Richard on here. What you could tell him? What's your problem?
The problem is because there is such a paucity of political knowledge in this country, and people like Nigel Farage, unfortunately, use this to their advantage to stand out and to actually become popular without actually offering anything in return.
I see.
He can promise the moon on a stick.
Thank you. Richard, that one problem here is that it is a one-man band, your party, isn't it? And, you know, all respect to you, if Farage, God forbid, goes under a bus, you have got nothing left.
Nonsense, because what we've got is actually decades of experience as successful business people who've actually made, we've grown businesses. I've built thousands of homes, employing thousands of people, attracting hundreds of millions of investment. That's what people want, is actually someone with a bit of nous, a bit of business know-how, who's got a track record, rather than all these wannabe think tank PPE-style politicians who've led this country to the terrible place it's in. If we don't change course, Jeremy, this country is going bankrupt. The bond markets are on tenterhooks. Something has got to change, and we're the only party who's got the policies that will create some proper growth like we used to have in the 80s and 90s when we were growing at 2.5% to 3.5% year in, year out. That's a pipe dream under the Labour policies at the moment.
Thank you very much, Richard Tice, for joining us. And we'll take some more calls on this. Are you pleased to see Reform at number 1? Now, more calls on whether Reform are better than Labour or the Tories from your point of view. They've moved into the number 1 slot. 0207 862 2222 is the number. Sharon in Staffordshire, are you pleased to see them at number 1?
I am indeed, Jeremy. I am indeed. I'm so happy.
So you're a Reform supporter?
I am indeed. The Reform Party is the best thing that's ever happened to British politics. It really is. Now, we've had enough of the Tories, the Labour, one year then, 1 year there. I'm sick of them. We need change, and we need somebody like Farage that's like Trump, that's for the British people. That's what we need.
Are we getting lured, I'm saying you and me and everyone, by what are called populists, Sharon? And the good example in this country is Boris Johnson. You've then got Farage. You've got Trump over the water. And the key thing about populists is they offer exactly what you want and they never deliver it.
Nigel Farage will deliver.
OK. You think he'll get into power? He could easily be the next prime minister. I'm not, what will he deliver, do you think?
Should be. So it should be. It should be. We need somebody that's for the British people, just like Trump, looking after their own people. That's what I want. I'm sick of paying my taxes for foreign aid and everything else. I'm sick of it. Yeah.
OK. Well, Sharon, thank you very much. I mean, if Farage gets in here, he would do a blitz on immigration. There's no question. And it would be the small boats he would start with. And what do you think he would do? Because they've tried everything.
I think the small boats makes great headlines, but it's actually not the fundamental problem with immigration.
That's what people are thinking about.
It's de minimis. He would grab the headlines and people would discover that immigration was still going up and it would still be going up in the hundreds of thousands. Oh, goodness.
There you are with him. Look.
Images of me, yes. Very frightening, looking slightly younger. But he doesn't actually have any better way of tackling it than anyone else. That some of their policies are illogical and others are wishful thinking. And what the British people need and demand is someone who can deliver.
And for people who are confused, you were in his party and then you left. Charlotte in Kent, hi.
Hi, hello Jeremy, hello to everyone.
Are you pleased he's number one now, Farage?
No, not at all. I think the whole party reform is quite a risky choice, and polls aren't always accurate. And also, I think we need to give Labour a chance. It hasn't been in a year yet.
They're having a bad time, aren't they?
They are having a bad time, but they haven't been in government for a long time and they've got a lot of mess to clear up. And with Farage involved with reform, he's in the past done a lot to upset people. Yeah. So I think that might be a bit of a problem. And as far as Brexit goes, I think Keir Starmer is trying to align us with Europe a bit more. And I think that's a good idea because, actually since Brexit, we're all in a cost of living crisis, so we're not better off.
Thanks, Charlotte. Richard is in Northamptonshire. Are you pleased that Reform are number one?
Good morning, Jeremy. Good morning, panel. Yes, I am actually. I grew up during the Heath and Wilson governments back in the 70s. They were true conviction politicians in the same way as Margaret Thatcher was, in fairness, during the 80s into the early 90s. My big problem is there is no real conviction politician out there at the minute other than Jeremy and Richard. Sorry.
Nigel and Richard. I was thinking Corbyn? No. Yeah, Nigel and Richard, you're saying. Is that right, Jemma, that they're the only conviction politicians here?
I think it's certainly fair to say that everybody's confused by what Starmer's vision is, what the Labour Party represent, and at this point in time, I think I was saying earlier, the fact that he's adopting this rather timid approach might work for now with needing to talk to the EU and Trump. But yeah, I can understand that. However, he's a snake oil salesman, in my view, OK? And when he was a sixth form student, Nigel Farage was very vocal about supporting the National Front. Yeah. And we all know what his stance on migration is, as you say, but what's he actually going to do? And other than that, what does he think about schools? What does he think about nurses? What does he think about... Well, we know what he thinks about climate change. He doesn't believe in it.
Really good point. And if you just look at what's been going on in Parliament, in fact, you've got 5 Reform MPs. Yeah. 4, as far as I'm concerned, have been completely silent. 1 has been asking Starmer and co quite difficult questions. And I think...
Lee Anderson.
Rupert Lowe.
And
I think he's been doing a good MP job. But when it comes to the schools bill, it's been the Tories who have been really holding the feet to the fire. They are if you look at the short money, reform don't do too badly because a large chunk of it is based on votes, not just MPs.
The short money is the way of funding parties in Parliament, yeah.
Yeah.
OK, Richard, thank you. Interesting call. Peter in Wolverhampton, do you think it's good for this country that reform are now, at least today, number one?
I think we have to distinguish between their correct stance on immigration, which actually they're not radical enough on immigration, but the rest of their policies are Thatcherite. And I think what we've got is 3 Thatcherite parties now, which you've named, and the only alternative is the Greens.
So wait a minute, Labour aren't Thatcherite. Are they not trying to privatise things? Come on.
No, they're absolutely prioritising looking after the national finances, which is a Thatcherite position.
Well, yeah, but everyone does that. You think that the Keir Starmer's a Thatcherite? Ooh, that's interesting. OK. All right, we'll put that in our pipe and smoke it. Thank you. Lee in East Sussex, hi.
Hello.
What do you think? Reform number one.
No, it's not a good thing for the country. I think ultimately, I would like to think we've got a change in demographic, and I can't believe young voters will forgive Nigel Farage for invoking the only sanctions a country's ever invoked on itself via Brexit. Now, I ideologically could see the idea for Brexit, but it was all based on ideology with no practicality. The results speak for themselves. I know Miss Rees-Mogg will totally disagree, but numbers do not lie. It's taken a huge hit from the economy. I'm a mortgage broker. I've had many fruit farmers down in Kent to go out of business. They have no way of exporting their fruit without a huge paperwork. It's been an absolute disaster.
Yeah,
I'm also quite interested.
But Annunziata's reply, which we've heard already, will be that...
We didn't do it properly.
No, well, there's that, yes, but also that Germany and France are struggling more than us. So that's...
Oh, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed, yeah. The EU's in trouble. I'm not denying,
But
I'm
we
not,
wouldn't have that paperwork. We wouldn't have for our businesses having to go through all that
That's not business, isn't the paperwork.
OK, look, I tell you what, we've got so many calls on this. Reform being apparently number one. We will take some more calls after the break. Speaking of apologies, apparently we can't attest to the fact you said Nigel Farage was in the National Front.
No, I didn't say he was in it. I said when he was a sixth former, he made noises about supporting it.
Oh, OK, maybe not. OK, that's even more tenuous. Anyway, it is disputed, all of it. We're taking a few more calls on whether Reform are better than Labour or the Tories. 0207 862 2222, because they're now number one, according to the polls, albeit on 25%. So it's very much, it's like the, that thing mid-season where the 3 main teams are 3 points apart or 2 points apart. You can't tell who's going to win the league. Ian in Cambridgeshire, are you pleased they're number one?
Oh, good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning.
Yes, I am. I'm hoping I live long enough to see a reformed government, because
well, you may.
Because if they're not racist, they are. You should call them the common sense party. I used to vote Conservative up to the 90s, but I saw the way they were going. This Labour government we've got is atrocious, and I'm afraid all the voters want is a reasonable life for themselves, their children, where they can take hospital services, where they can get medical treatment.
Yeah, good luck with that.
And that's all they want in life. But I believe that if reform doesn't come to power, the that they will revolt. There will be violence.
Well, I hope not, because we have elections to avoid violence. But listen, Ian, we were the one big thing that Reform did, and Farage himself, was to recommend Brexit. And we were told that if Brexit happened, that they showed these films of these brand spanking new hospitals and people walking in and getting treatment without any queues.
Well, the point is...
That hasn't happened.
Well, the point is, we've had one Prime Minister after another under the Conservatives who weren't really wanting to leave the EU.
But we did leave it, Ian. We're supposed to spring out of it and things are supposed to get better.
Yes, but the point is, we've had COVID, we've had this war in Ukraine, and we've also had politicians who weren't didn't have the courage.
All right.
First
Let me let
to get
Jemma respond, because Gemma's champing at the bit here.
Look, we were sold a pipe dream. Leave EU, that video. It was like, if we leave the EU, hospitals will be like a spa. It was rubbish. You know, we've been sold a dud.
Okay.
Our
Ian, thank you.
politicians saved more than 350 million that was put on the bus per week.
You do know we used to get stuff back for that. Look at Cornwall.
They did not decide to spend it on the NHS. That is the democratic. We elected Conservatives who chose to spend it on other things, but we have actually saved that money. It is now in our economy.
When you say we saved it, we did lose, let's say, taxes that would have been paid by businesses which were trading with the EU and can't trade anymore. So it's more complicated than just saying we saved 22 billion, which was our subscription.
We saved far more than that.
We lost 4% of our GDP. It has now been proven that, yes, we
it hasn't.
By the way, we're still paying that Brexit divorce bill as well.
The causality has not been shown at all. You can't. It was based on where they thought we might go, not knowing that the Ukraine, COVID or anything else was going to happen, or predicting that the European economies were tanking.
Every financial
call,
institution,
and
the
we can't
IMF,
take them
the
because you
OBR,
filibustered.
Goldman Sachs, they're all wrong.
All right. We were going to take another call and you kicked off on Brexit again. Let's remind you what's still coming up.